нанесена удар ножом в область сердца.
Не помню, 2 или 3 удара я нанес.
Зашел обратно.
Throughout modern Russian history, there have been many serial killers who terrorized cities and entire regions for years. Some of them were so brutal that even experienced investigators admitted they would rather never look at those case files again. This iceberg presents the most violent and horrifying murderers in the largest country on Earth. Level 1. Valery Andreev, the Orsk Maniac. Valery Nikolaevich Andreev was born on April 10, 1957, in the village of Shalkarsky in the Orenburg region. After finishing school, he became a long-haul truck driver, spending years working routes that connected cities across the region. He was married and had 2 sons. People who knew him spoke positively about him, but some colleagues noticed that, starting in the mid-2000s, he became withdrawn and began working alone during long trips. Andreev came under suspicion in late June 2012, after the disappearance of 18-year-old Olga Zhuravlyova. Witnesses saw the girl get into a white SsangYong SUV, and traffic cameras later traced its route to the city of Orsk. Police discovered that only 2 such vehicles were registered there, and one belonged to Andreev. A search of his truck and garage uncovered biological traces, bloodstains, and women's belongings, underwear, jewelry, and accessories that didn't fit the image of a regular truck driver. Colleagues said they had seen women's items in his cabin before, but never considered it suspicious. He was questioned, but released due to insufficient evidence. On July 6, 2012, he phoned his wife and then vanished. He has not contacted anyone since. A nationwide manhunt was launched. Investigators later established that many missing women along the Orenburg-Chelyabinsk and Samara-Orenburg highways disappeared on routes matching Andreev's trips. Residents reported vehicles stopping near forest belts, and police received tips from Samara, Chelyabinsk, Nizhny Novgorod, and even Kazakhstan. Officially, he is suspected of at least 8 murders. As of 2025, Andreev remains at large. Andrei Golovatyov, the apartment maniac. Andrei Golovatyov was born on June 22, 1967, in the settlement of Yarega near Ukhta. As a child, he spent a lot of time at a shooting range and became an accurate marksman. He appeared calm and quiet but had little money, and together with a friend, he began stealing briefcases from students and selling them, gradually becoming involved in criminal circles. His first proven murder took place on September 6, 1996. He and a group of acquaintances were spending time with several girls at a sports club. He offered to give one of them a ride, Elena Alexandrova. In the car, Golovatyov and his associate Pirogovsky tried to force her into sexual contact. When she refused, Golovatyov stabbed her several times, dragged her out, and finished her off. They dumped her body from a bridge into the Pozhnya River. On November 18, 1996, he killed again. He saw a man named Melnik beating his wife and shot him. He wrapped the body with Pirogovsky, took it outside the city, and disposed of it. Melnik's wife, who witnessed the murder, never went to the police. On December 8, 1996, Golovatyov killed police major Andrei Vizov, whom he met at a bar named Heinrich. Vizov saw a gun in his car and threatened to report him. Golovatyov, together with a man named Kapsamunov, shot him and dumped the body under a bridge. An inspection of the vehicle later revealed blood, bullet holes, spent casings, and traces of gunfire. On January 6, 1997, he killed another man named Anisimov. They quarreled at a sports club, and someone prevented the shooting in front of witnesses. Later, near a swimming pool, Golovatyov caught up with him and shot him. Realizing police were closing in, he fled to Moscow and handed his weapon to a woman he knew. She passed it to Kapsamunov, who eventually turned himself in. Golovatyov was arrested in the summer of 1997 and charged with 4 murders and illegal possession of firearms. However, at the end of 1997, the court unexpectedly released him on a written pledge not to leave town. He immediately fled the Komi Republic. He He remained a fugitive for 3 years and was caught only in 2000 after committing another murder. In 2002, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for 5 proven murders. While in prison, he began confessing to older crimes, and investigators linked him to 8 additional killings. Later, evidence surfaced of more murders in the Krasnodar region and Sochi. Golovachov is still serving a life sentence, and investigators continue reviewing disappearances from the late 1990s that match his travel routes. Denis Pishakov, the Earl Raskolnikov. Denis Pishakov was born on April 12, 1983, in the settlement of Bulanash in the Sverdlovsk region. His family lived in hardship. His father left and died soon after, his stepfather drank heavily, and his mother struggled to provide for them. Denis was a poor student, repeated grades twice, dropped out after the 5th year, and soon came under police supervision for thefts and petty crimes. In the early 2000s, he moved to Moscow, where he tried to steal from a car. A criminal case was opened, but he managed to avoid punishment and moved to the Vladimir region. He stayed with acquaintances, worked on construction sites or at tire shops, and began breaking into the homes of elderly people in search of money. These robberies quickly escalated into a series of murders. His first known killing occurred on March 29, 2002, in the village of Pashnyovo. He attacked an elderly man, stole several thousand rubles, and escaped. After that, the pattern became routine. Pishakov targeted lonely pensioners, entered their homes under the pretext of helping them, or simply forced his way inside, killed them with a knife or an axe, and took whatever he could carry, cash, groceries, or small valuables. Over 2 years, he murdered at least 14 people in the Moscow and Vladimir regions. He was arrested on April 5, 2003, in the town of Likinodulyovo, after an elderly woman noticed a suspicious young man near her house and called the police. Upon detention, he immediately began confessing and described his attacks in detail. In 2004, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Years later, while already in prison, Pishakov confessed to several more similar killings committed in the early 2000s. With these new episodes included, the total number of his victims rose to 17. Irina Gaidamachuk, the female Raskolnikov. Irina Viktorovna Gaidamachuk was born on March 9, 1972, in the city of Karpinsk, in the Sverdlovsk region. Later she moved to Krasnofimsk, where she lived with her husband and children. Alcohol became part of her life early on. Family relations deteriorated. She had no official employment and frequently lost her documents. From the late 1990s until around 2010, Gaidamachuk committed a series of brutal murders. According to investigators, she killed 17 elderly women aged 60 to 90. Her victims were lonely pensioners living across the Sverdlovsk region, including Krasnofimsk, Yekaterinburg, Seryov, and other towns. Her method was consistent. She introduced herself as a social worker or a public utilities employee, gained access to the victims' apartments, then killed them with a hammer or an axe and stole money or small valuables. Sometimes she set the homes on fire to destroy evidence. Her mobility, lack of identification documents, and the scattered crime scenes made it difficult for authorities to connect the murders early on. She was finally caught in mid-2010 after attempting to kill another elderly woman who survived and testified. During searches, investigators found a hammer and a knife, and the accumulated evidence proved her involvement. A psychiatric examination declared her sane. In February 2012, her criminal case of 443 volumes was sent to court, and on June 4th of that year, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison, the maximum term allowed for female offenders in Russia. She was found guilty of 17 murders and 18 robberies, based on witness testimony, forensic analysis, and material evidence. She is currently serving her sentence in a general regime correctional colony. Some aspects of the case remain open, as investigators believe there may be additional victims and episodes still under review. Level 2. Alexander Vasilyev, the Black Angel. Alexander Nikolaevich Vasilyev was born on March 31st, 1958, in the settlement of Malinovka in the Chuvash ASSR. At school, he showed little interest in studying, completed only 8 grades, then graduated from a vocational school as a mechanic and tractor driver. Later, he moved to Krasnoyarsk, got married, and had children. In the late 1980s, he was convicted of sexual acts against a minor, served time, was released early, and found work as a Kamaz truck driver at a factory. Between 1997 and 2001, Vasilyev committed a series of 17 murders in Krasnoyarsk and nearby areas. He targeted elderly, lonely people through ads selling furniture, antiques, or apartments. Posing as a buyer, he entered their homes and killed them with extreme violence, stealing money or small valuables. In one episode, he and an accomplice robbed dachas in the summer of 2000, but when the loot turned out to be meager, Vasilyev shot his accomplice as well. After that, he switched to taxi drivers. He hailed a ride, gave an address, and murdered the drivers in remote locations. He was arrested in August 2001 near Krasnoyarsk. When police traced a stolen car back to him, the owner of the vehicle had been murdered. During interrogations, Vasilyev confessed to 17 murders, 2 attempted murders, and 13 robberies. A psychiatric examination declared him sane. Prosecutors demanded life imprisonment, but on November 5, 2002, the Krasnoyarsk Regional Court sentenced him to 25 years. He appealed his sentence several times. It was reduced first to 22.5 years, then to 21, and later to 20 years and 10 months. On November 21, 2017, the Krasnoyarsk Regional Court released him due to a terminal diagnosis: kidney cancer with metastases. He had served about 16 years by then. After his release, he lived quietly in Krasnoyarsk and created accounts on TikTok and YouTube. Alexander Vasilyev died in January 2020. Valery Kopytov, the Barnaul Chikatilo. Valery Yuryevich Kopytov was born in 1971 in Barnaul, Altai Krai. In the late 1980s, he began stealing and was convicted of theft and robbery. After serving his sentence, he returned to Barnaul, but could not find stable work and eventually started living as a vagrant. He dug out an underground shelter near the new bridge over the Ob River and spent years there among other homeless people. Between 2000 and 2004, Kopytov committed at least 19 murders of homeless individuals in Barnaul and surrounding areas. He usually drank with his victims, provoked arguments, and then attacked them, beating them to death with blunt objects or strangling them. After the killings, he took whatever he could: money, personal belongings, and clothes. Of the 19 confirmed murders, at least 13 occurred right next to his underground dwelling. The rest took place in the towns of Novoaltaysk, Zarinsk, and Baisk. On one occasion, he acted with an accomplice, Yuri Malagin, who held the victim down while Kopytov strangled him. Kopytov was arrested in mid-2004. He confessed immediately and led investigators to the burial sites of 13 bodies. His case went to court on July 8, 2005, and on September 22nd, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The court cited his cooperation with the investigation as a mitigating factor, preventing him from receiving a life sentence. Malagin was sentenced to 11 years. The case is considered unprecedented in the Altai region due to the high number of victims. Despite its scale, the punishment was relatively lenient compared to similar crimes in Russia. Vadim Yershov, the Krasnoyarsk Chikatilo. Vadim Yershov was born on February 15, 1973, in the settlement of Rechnoy in the Kirov region. His childhood was difficult. His father suffered from schizophrenia. His mother left the family with his younger sister, and Vadim remained with his mentally ill father. After his father's suicide, he moved to his mother in the Krasnoyarsk region. At school, he behaved calmly and showed average academic results, but also demonstrated cruelty. He tortured animals and set fire to other people's property. In 1991, he was drafted into the army and served in the Russian Far East. He became a victim of hazing and once attacked one of his abusers, stabbing him and hitting him with a brick. He deserted and returned to Krasnoyarsk. Between 1992 and 1995, Yershov committed more than 70 crimes in Krasnoyarsk and nearby areas, including rapes, robberies, at least 19 murders, and 8 attempted murders. His victims were girls and women of various ages. His methods were repetitive. He attacked with a knife or a stick, usually outdoors or in apartment entrances. He kept a table of his crimes, documenting each attack in a notebook. One victim survived a rape, and another case involved the murder of a 42-year-old restaurant worker with a wooden stick. Yershov was arrested on October 29, 1995, after attacking a 16-year-old girl in her building. He tried to flee with a knife, but a local woman hit him with a fire extinguisher, helping officers detain him. In 1998, he was convicted and sentenced to death by firing squad. However, due to the moratorium on the death penalty in Russia, his sentence was replaced with life imprisonment. He is currently serving his term in a high-security prison. Level 3. Radik Tagirov, the Kazan Strangler. Radik Tagirov was born in the village of Kindary near Kazan. After school he practiced judo and taekwondo, but later became addicted to glue and drugs. In 2009 he was convicted of theft and robbery, and sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. He was released on parole in 2010, lived without stable work, moved frequently, and sometimes handed out flyers for money. On March 5, 2011, he committed his first murder in Kazan. His victim was a 90-year-old woman. Tagirov followed her into the entrance of her building, offered to help carry her bags, and went inside the apartment. As soon as the door closed, he attacked and strangled her with his hands. He stole around 1,000 rubles and some groceries. That same day, he attempted another murder, but the victim survived. His true killing spree began 6 months later. He targeted lonely elderly women living in Khrushchevka apartment blocks. He offered help with bags or posed as a social worker, strangled his victims with whatever was at hand, stole small valuables, cleaned the crime scenes with detergents, and locked the apartments on his way out. Investigators later concluded that robbery was not his primary motive. From August to October 2011, he committed 4 more attacks in Kazan. 3 women were killed, 1 survived, but could not describe him because she was blind. On the 3rd killing, he found nothing to steal, and on the 4th, he took nothing at all. He then moved outside Kazan. Between November 2011 and January 2012, similar murders occurred in Nizhnekamsk, Volzhsk, and Izhevsk. During one attack, the victim's son unexpectedly returned home. Tagirov escaped by jumping from a 3rd-floor balcony. The son could not identify him. After that, Tagirov chose victims living no higher than the 2nd floor to maintain an escape route. He later returned to Kazan briefly, committed 3 more murders, and left the city for good. By 2012, the number of similar killings of elderly women began rising across the Volga, Ural, and Central Federal districts. On August 1, 2012, Tagirov was placed on a wanted list in multiple regions, already suspected in at least 18 murders. In 2013, authorities offered a reward of 1 million rubles for information. Rumors spread that he was hiding on Sakhalin, but that theory was dismissed. Over the next years, investigators received contradictory leads. In 2016, cameras in Kazan filmed a man resembling the suspect, but it was not him. In 2017, investigators announced they believed the killer to be from Udmurtia and speculated he might have victim lists. They even considered that he might be imprisoned, hospitalized, or dead. The breakthrough came in late 2020. DNA from the crime scenes matched genetic material taken from the mother of a potential suspect. This led investigators to Darbisky, a district of Kazan, where 38-year-old locksmith Radik Tagirov lived. He was recently married and had become a father in 2020. He was arrested on December 1st. During early interrogations, Tagirov confessed, saying he strangled women because he wanted to eat, and believed strangulation was the most painless method. He said he lived on the streets after prison and saw the murders as an easy way to get money. When asked why he did not limit himself to robbery, he replied, "I could have, but for some reason I didn't." His trial began on October 19th, 2022. In court, he retracted his confession, claiming it was given under pressure. Prosecutors demanded life imprisonment. Tagirov insisted he was innocent and claimed he was in another city during several murders. On March 21st, 2024, he was sentenced to life, 10 years in prison, followed by a special regime colony. Vladimir Mirgorod, the Neat Maniac. Vladimir Mirgorod was born on November 1st, 1979 in Moscow. Outwardly, he appeared ordinary. He studied, worked as a cargo courier, and easily established contact with women. But in the early 2000s, he began leading a double life. From 2000 to 2004, Mirgorod committed at least 31 murders of women and girls. He met his victims on the street, in parks, or while offering them a ride. His method was always similar. He gained their trust with casual conversation, then sexually assaulted and strangled them, using his hands, shoelaces, belts, or anything available. In one case, he killed a woman and her 15-year-old son in their apartment. At the end of 2004, Mirgorod was arrested on charges of robbery and rape, but investigators did not yet connect him to the murders. He served his sentence and was released. Several years later, in 2010, during a drinking session, he began boasting about killing women. Someone reported his words to the police. His fingerprints were checked against unsolved crime scene evidence, and they matched. In January 2012, Mirgorod was sentenced to life imprisonment. Yet his story did not end there. In 2024-2025, investigators reopened old missing person cases and found new links. Mirgorod confessed to at least 17 additional murders committed during the same period. In 2025, he received a second life sentence. Alexei Vygovsky, the sinister passenger. Alexei Vygovsky was born in 1986 in Vladivostok, in an ordinary family. His mother worked in law enforcement, but he was a difficult child from the start. He often ran away from home, kept to himself at school, performed poorly, and stole, first from his parents, then from classmates. At 14, he fled to Moscow, lived in train stations, sold pastries, and mingled with teenage gangs. At the age of 16, he was arrested for theft and sent to a juvenile colony for a year. After his release, his parents tried to bring him back to a normal life. He even went to university, but soon ran away to Moscow again. There he lived with a girlfriend, but continued stealing from passengers in the metro and suburban trains. Eventually, he developed a new strategy. He filled a flask with alcohol mixed with sleeping pills. On trains, he would sit next to intoxicated passengers, strike up a conversation, and offer them a friendly drink. Sometimes he pretended to drink as well. The victim would lose consciousness, and Vygovsky would take their money, phones, or other belongings. Whether the victim survived or not, he did not check. His first confirmed fatality occurred on January 14, 2006, at Kazansky railway station, when a man died from a heart attack triggered by the mixture. Soon after, Vygovsky was arrested for a routine theft and served a year and a half in prison. Upon release, he recruited two accomplices, Ilya Trubanov and Shukrat Jurayev. They rented an apartment in the Moscow region and operated systematically. The accomplices scouted targets, Vygovsky administered the drink, and they divided the spoils. Their income grew so much that Vygovsky bought a Toyota 4Runner and showered his girlfriend with expensive gifts. Among the victims was a colonel from the Ministry of Defense and a master-level athlete. Police launched an investigation after an unusual rise in deaths among train passengers. One survivor provided a description. Cameras later captured a man withdrawing money with cards belonging to deceased victims. On March 2, 2009, Vygovsky was arrested at Kursky railway station. He was carrying the flask and stolen items. He confessed to 28 poisonings, 17 deaths, and 15 survivors, some of whom became permanently disabled. One accomplice died in detention. In late 2011, Vygovsky was sentenced to 22 years and 3 months in prison and ordered to pay nearly 5 million rubles in compensation to the victims' families. Jurayev received 15 years. In 2023, Vygovsky admitted to 44 additional poisonings, half of them fatal. In autumn 2023, the court extended his sentence by 3 months. He will not be eligible for release before 2031. Level 4. Evgeny Chuplinsky, the Policeman Ripper. Evgeny Chuplinsky was born in 1965 in Novosibirsk. He was an average student but gravitated toward discipline and authority early in life. He joined the Komsomol youth organization and later served in the border troops. He excelled in combat sambo, did everything to impress his superiors, and after military service entered the police. He rose to the rank of sergeant, worked in security patrol units, and retired in 2003 with medals, commendations, and the reputation of a model officer. During this time, he married 3 times and opened a small chain of stores. In 1998, he bought a Vaz 2108 and started working unofficially as a taxi driver. In the autumn of that year, the first murder occurred. Soon bodies of women involved in prostitution began appearing on the outskirts of Novosibirsk, dumped near landfills, in forest belts, or by the roadside. The killer's signature stood out. The victims were dismembered. Strange arrows or pentagrams were carved into their skin, and ritual-like amulets were left nearby. Some victims were beheaded. He didn't try to hide the bodies. Instead, he left them in places where they would be found. The brutality made identification extremely difficult. Investigators struggled to understand the motive. Some believed it was ritualistic, others thought he was trying to mislead police, and a third group suspected pure sadism. By the early 2000s, it became clear the killings formed a series, but the investigation stalled. There were almost no witnesses, and composite sketches were useless. In 2005, the murders suddenly stopped. The authorities speculated the killer was either imprisoned for another crime or dead. Chuplinsky first appeared on investigators' radar in 2004, when the phone of a missing woman was activated with a SIM card registered to him. His explanation was vague, but the lead was not pursued. In 2006, as cases were being consolidated, more coincidences surfaced. He was familiar with prostitutes in the areas where bodies were found, showed interest in what they told the police, and transferred to another department after rumors surfaced about his ties to the illegal sex trade. He was detained and his garage was searched, but no direct evidence was found, so he was released. The breakthrough came only in 2016, when a new genetic laboratory opened in the investigative committee. DNA from the crime scenes matched Chuplinsky's genetic material. He was arrested in April 2016 and found mentally competent in 2017. He initially confessed to 29 murders, but only 19 could be proven. He was indicted on 19 counts. In February 2018, a jury found him guilty, and in March he received a life sentence in a special regime penal colony. The verdict was briefly overturned due to the statute of limitations on several episodes, but in November 2018, the court reinstated the same sentence. In September 2019, Chuplinsky was transferred to serve his life term in IK6 Elban, a high-security colony. Mikhail Popkov, the Wednesday Killer. Mikhail Popkov was born in 1964 in Norilsk. He was interested in skiing at school, served in the border troops, and later worked as a police officer in Angarsk. Colleagues described him as calm and even friendly, calling him Misha the Smile. In 1998, he suddenly resigned from the police, despite recently earning the rank of junior lieutenant. After leaving the force, he worked as a security guard, drove a taxi, and dug graves at a cemetery. His murder spree began in 1994. His victims were young women, usually intoxicated and returning home late at night. Popkov picked them up in his police car, or offered them a ride, pretending to be a helpful officer. He drove them to remote places outside Angarsk, forest roads, roadside areas, or abandoned lots. He used different weapons: an axe, a knife, a screwdriver, an awl, or a garrote. Some victims were mutilated. One woman had her heart removed. Another was burned. Most were between 15 and 28 years old. Only a few were older. The only sober victim was not raped, but she was killed as well. Bodies were found around Angarsk, in forests, dumps, and along highways. Many were so brutally disfigured that identification was difficult. By 1998, rumors of a serial killer circulated, but the investigation stalled. In 2000, a new investigative team led by Officer Nikolai Kitaev reviewed the cases and found numerous errors, botched forensic reports, ignored evidence, and missing case materials. One survivor reported being assaulted by a police officer in uniform, but her case had been dismissed. Popkov evaded suspicion for years because he was part of the police force and later lived an ordinary life. The murders stopped in the mid-2000s. Investigators assumed the killer had died or been imprisoned for unrelated crimes. The breakthrough came only in 2012, when the investigative committee reopened old cases. DNA evidence from 2003 matched Popkov's genetic profile. He was arrested while traveling to Vladivostok to buy a new car. During interrogations, he confessed to dozens of murders and claimed he stopped killing due to impotence. In 2015, he was found guilty of 22 murders and sentenced to life imprisonment. But the case did not end there. After his conviction, Popkov continued confessing to new crimes. In 2017, he was charged with 59 additional murders. In 2018, he received a second life sentence. Later, he was stripped of his rank, pension, and received another sentence that added 9 years, though it had no effect on his already permanent imprisonment. By 2023, the confirmed number of victims reached 86. Investigators are still checking whether he is linked to more killings across the Russian Far East. In 2025, he confessed to another murder committed in the late 2010s. Alexander Pichushkin, the Hammer Chessman. Alexander Pichushkin was born in 1974 in Mytishchi. His father left before he turned one, and he was raised by his mother and grandfather. As a child, he enjoyed playing chess and rarely caused trouble. Everything changed after a severe head injury. He fell from a swing, suffered brain trauma, developed speech problems, and was transferred to a speech therapy boarding school. Later, he studied at a vocational school to become a carpenter, but was rejected from military service and placed under psychiatric supervision. His first officially recognized murder occurred in 1992. He suggested to a fellow student, Mikhail Odichuk, that they kill someone for the experience. Odichuk thought it was a joke. In Bitsevsky Park, Pichushkin strangled him with a rope and threw the body into a sewer collector. The remains were never found. Before killing him, Pichushkin forced Odichuk to write a note claiming he was leaving life voluntarily. When questioned by police, Pichushkin denied involvement. After this, he became obsessed with murder. He followed the trial of serial killer Andrei Chikatilo and fantasized about becoming a systematic killer himself. His full killing spree began in 2001. Pichushkin lived with his mother and sister on Khersonskaya Street and worked as a loader at nearby stores. His early victims were men, alcoholics, drifters, and other marginalized people. He approached them near metro stations or on the street, started conversations, and invited them to drink with him for a dog or for a holiday. He led them into Bitsevsky Park and killed them. At first, he pushed victims into wells and collectors where they died from trauma, hypothermia, or drowning. Bodies later surfaced in water treatment systems, but authorities initially believed they were unidentified vagrants who had fallen by accident. Over time, he changed his method. He began killing directly in the forest, striking victims repeatedly on the head with a hammer. Later, he added a gruesome signature. He rammed sticks or broken bottles into the skull wounds. After the discovery of several bodies with this mark, police realized a serial killer was operating in Bitsevsky Park. Meanwhile, Pichushkin kept a chessboard at home. Each kill corresponded to a square, marked with a cork or a piece. He claimed his goal was 64 victims, the number of squares on a chessboard. Some victims managed to survive. 13-year-old fugitives Mikhail Lobov and Konstantin Polikarpov managed to escape after being dumped into a manhole. So was Maria Viricheva. But interestingly, a local police officer convinced her not to file a complaint and to say that she fell by accident. By 2005-2006, the murders became more frequent and ritualistic. Pichushkin no longer targeted only strangers. He killed several co-workers as well. His final victim was Marina Moskaleva, a 36-year-old colleague at a supermarket. Before meeting him, she left a note for her son with his name and phone number. After she disappeared, investigators reviewed CCTV footage and traced her last movements. Cameras captured her and Pichushkin traveling together into the park. On June 16, 2006, he was arrested. Pichushkin eagerly described his crimes during interrogations. He claimed to have killed not 49, but around 60 people, many of whom he knew personally. He said he preferred talking to his victims before killing them because it created more emotion. In 2007, a jury convicted him of 49 murders and 3 attempted murders. He was sentenced to life in a special regime colony with forced psychiatric observation. He was sent to the Polar Owl prison. There, he repeatedly stated he felt no remorse and would continue killing if released. In 2025, it became known that he was prepared to confess to 11 additional murders in the Severny Butovo district. These cases are under separate investigation. Alexander Spesivtsev, the Novokuznetsk cannibal. Alexander Spesivtsev was born on March 1, 1970, in Novokuznetsk, Kemerovo region. He grew up in a 3-room apartment on Pioneer Avenue with his mother Lyudmila, father Nikolai, and sister Nadezhda. His father was an alcoholic and unfaithful, while his mother was overprotective. Spesivtsev slept in the same bed with her until age 12. She worked as a supply manager and later as an assistant to a lawyer, often bringing home criminal case files with photographs of corpses. According to Spesivtsev, he examined these images with fascination. In 1988, he was sent to a psychiatric hospital for theft. In 1991, he met 17-year-old Evgenia Guselnikova and held her captive in his apartment for a month, torturing her. She died from sepsis, though the autopsy failed to determine the cause definitively. In 1992, a court declared Spesivtsev schizophrenic and committed him to a special psychiatric clinic in Oriol. In 1995, he was released, but due to bureaucratic errors, his records were not properly updated, and he still appeared as a patient in the system. After returning to Novokuznetsk, Spesivtsev began killing people in apartment number 357. His first known victim after release was 21-year-old Elena Trunova. He lured her in, attempted to forcibly engage in sexual acts, and then killed her with a knife. His mother helped him dismember the body and dispose of the remains. In the spring and summer of 1996, he murdered at least 15 more victims: children, teenagers, and young women. Neighbors complained about an unbearable smell and loud music from the apartment, but authorities never conducted proper inspections. The last documented episode involved 3 schoolgirls, 13-year-olds Nastya Bernaeva and Zhenya Barashkina, and 15-year-old Olya Galtseva. Spesivtsev's mother personally brought the girls to him. Nastya was killed immediately. Zhenya and Olya were kept chained for a month, tortured, raped, forced to take part in dismembering Nastya's body, and made to eat the flesh while his mother and sister were present. Spesivtsev's dog gnawed on the bones. On October 24, 1996, plumbers were unable to access the apartment and called the police. Officers broke in and found Olya Galtseva bleeding, along with body parts in the bathtub and a container. Spesivtsev escaped through the roof but was caught 2 days later. Olya died 3 days after the arrest but managed to give testimony. He was charged with 19 murders. Objects found in the apartment, jewelry, clothing, and photographs of unknown children suggested many more victims. In 1997, he was convicted of the 1991 murder and sentenced to 10 years. In 1999, after a new psychiatric evaluation, he was declared legally insane again and transferred to lifelong compulsory treatment in a special psychiatric facility in the Volgograd region. His mother Lyudmila received 13 years in prison. His sister avoided punishment. In May 2024, a court recognized his involvement in 15 additional murders, and a surviving boy emerged as a witness. As of 2025, Alexander Spasivtsev remains under compulsory psychiatric treatment. The apartment where the crimes took place is still registered in his name and has unpaid utility debts. That's all. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe, like, and leave a comment. See you in the next one.